nice article in the Managing Madrid blog. Wonderful lads that do a great job there. And worth reading about that man there. Karim Benzema needs to rest, and the numbers reveal why.
Times ended up almost looking like a 6-3-1. Some very good writing about that on the Managing Madrid website. First rate podcast as well. Of course, Fede Valverde was a huge part of the equation.
Well, it's January. We're getting questions over Kaminga's performances. Where Arda Guler, like after a great end to last season, we've barely heard from him. And Aurelien Tchouameni might be on his way out. He just played his best game as a DM in months. But if you told me like all these years in, if we don't get consistent good DM performances from him, I would have been scared. Jarod, welcome. You've been a very vocal proponent of playing young guys, and today we're going to talk about how messed up it is that generational players like Kaminga can look so clueless in certain games. We just want to talk about the player development of our young guys. Is Ancelotti doing a good job? Or doing a good job as a club? Obviously, Jarod, your premise is no, but what are your initial?
Yes, overall, my premise is no. First off, I want to say, Sid, always a pleasure to be with you. And when that real deal intro hit, it slaps, man. You're ready to, like, you're walking into the arena. I said it before. No, look, I want to be clear about something, right? Like, I am not someone who is like, play the kids at all costs. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is players are not robots, okay? They need playing time. Like you need and I need oxygen to breathe. That's how they get better. You do not get better by sitting on the bench, nor do you get better by just being on the training field. You want to know why? Because the way the compact calendar is in all these games, what do you think they're actually doing on the practice pitch? Not a whole lot of actual real training because they got to save their legs because they got 3 games in 7 days, right? Which is nuts. I just think that, again, you want to look at points in which players can get reference points because that's what playing time is, Sid. It's reference points. It's knowing that, okay, I've been in this situation now a gazillion times that it now becomes automated. I don't have to think. My body just knows how to react because I can process, right? What I see visually happens in my brain and my body knows what to do. Again, you don't get that by sitting down. That's not how you learn that. You have to experience it yourself. And sadly, as much as we love Carlo, the most successful coach in club history, he and Florentino and the board have not set up a system that is functional for this team to proceed with these generational talents that we sign. And I'm going to include Tchouameni in there because I believe he is still that. And you are not giving them ample opportunity to get the reference points they need.
Yeah, for sure. And the playing time thing is an issue for Guler. Let's start with Arda Guler, see how many minutes he's played.
Not a lot.
Yeah, because he's the one, like Tchouameni and Kaminga have gotten minutes. So they're in a different bucket here. But with Guler going to the start of last season.
This year, 590 minutes this year.
Yes. But honestly, dude, 835 minutes in all competitions this year is still double what he got last year. So that's something to consider. What do you have to say about that? Because is it not true that really great players can get fringe minutes and then blow up out of nowhere?
Yes. Really great, elite, top, might be the best in the world. And that's also part of the thing that we have to we have to think about, Sid. Look, we root for not just the greatest football club in the world. We root for the greatest sporting club in the history of sports kind. We are so fortunate, and by the same token, we are also spoiled. And we just believe that everybody who puts on a Madrid shirt magically is the greatest of all time at their position. And we all know that ain't the case. Now, it doesn't mean they're not good, right? It just means that they may not be that. So yes, elite people like Vinny, right, could get fringe minutes and all of a sudden, yes, but maybe Arda's not Vinny, and that's okay. I mean, Vinny is, I mean, he didn't win it, but should be, right? Vinny should be the current Ballon d'Or holder, right? I mean, so maybe Arda's just not that. Doesn't mean he's not good. Maybe that means Arda is a top 10 player in the, okay, that's not bad. That's just not the best player in the world, right? And I think there are levels to this, and I think people and fans need to understand that. You also mentioned, minute differences, right? And so I want to be clear about something. Yes, Tchouameni and Kaminga have gotten minutes, but I was looking at something the other day. So if you play 25 full 90s in a season, right, that's 2,250 minutes. If you play 30 full 90s, it's about 2,700 minutes. Tchouameni, since he's been at Real Madrid, these are his minute totals. 21, 19, 1987, 1274. Now, some of that is some injuries, right? And various things. But again, when you're talking about someone who may not be the best DM in the world or the best player in the world, he perhaps needs more consistent minutes. And by the way, I gave you his total minutes. That's assuming all those total minutes were at DM, which we know they were not. Some of them were at center back. Some of them were at left. Okay. Are we sure that that's a good idea for player development, right? If we think his best position is DM, well, that means he has to play DM, right? Every time he has to shift and play center back or do something else, that is valuable DM minutes he's not experiencing. He's doing something totally different now, and that is stunting his development. Again, for someone who may not be the best player in the world, right? Who's still a world-class player, but not the best in the world. And that also gets into Carlos' lack of structure for players, right? Someone like Tchouameni in these, he needs structure, right? Structures that once I give him the paradigm and the framework to work in, and he has enough reps, now, Aurelien, you can freelance within the structure I gave you. But no structure and just freelance and do whatever you want. Oh, sometimes you got to play center back. Well, of course he makes mistakes and is confused sometimes because there's no reference point for him to go back to and say, no, this is baseline.
Yeah, and just going through Tchouameni's metrics here, as far as his defending, I'm just finding them. Because what I think people need to remember what he was when he came here, which is just one of the best prototypes for a defensive mid in Europe. Everyone wanted him. He, like, usually when you look for a young defensive midfielder, it's hard to find someone who's very high in the defensive metrics, who also shows up as like a highly accurate passer, who also to the eye looks like he knows what he's doing and isn't just playing in an easy league. So putting all those things together, it's very rare to get a full package. It's hard to find like 99th percentile defenders who are not useless on offense anyways. Like it's just, the more attacking a player gets, like specialists are very common, even in this sport. Like DM is one of the few positions where you have to be really good at tracking and like playing offense. And like as a left winger, you just got to like kind of mark your man. You don't have to worry about between the lines presence. As a striker, again, like maybe you're marking the DM. You're not like covering between the lines. So Tchouameni was Monaco his last season. Like he had 3.74 tackles per 90 when he was 20 at Monaco in 38 90s, which is ridiculous. That's like as high as any of Casemiro's seasons, I'm pretty sure. That's like 99th percentile. And then his interceptions were at 3 the season before he got here. I'm pretty sure that's 99th percentile
that's
too.
Incredible.
Yeah. So like usually 2 to 3 tackles and interceptions each, like that's what the best defenders give you in their best seasons. Maybe in a better system like ours now, or not, I wouldn't say a better system, but in a system, in a system like ours now, you put 4 guys who would average those numbers on a Monaco and other teams. They're not all going to average that here. We've seen like, even on our team, some seasons Fede or Kaminga are higher in some metrics. Tchouameni's not. But even then, these are 99th percentile defensive metrics. Like he should be a very good defender in theory. And I think if you were to blame him individually, this is still the one area where I would blame him and not the club, because maybe I guess there are 2 angles. One, his body language looks like sometimes he could be doing a better job. No question.
He loses confidence very easily. You can see it.
Yeah. He's very timid for sure. Oh, that's a great point. I didn't even realize that, but he gets timid, and then he's also replacing, like the number one cleanup job DM in the history of football. Where like Casemiro, there are many, like if let's say Casemiro is a 99th percentile defender in the history of football, there are many 96th and 95th percentile defenders who would look like idiots in his role,
right?
Because some of his actions required just a level of defensive awareness that maybe you don't want your DM doing on many great teams. But
yeah, it's that extra chance that Tchouameni might be giving up, right? That Casemiro wouldn't, right? And in a sport like football, where one goal can decide a game, that matters, right? That is everything. And I think again, the point about the confidence thing, Sid, is it a chicken or egg situation? Is he timid, or is he timid because he feels like I'm rudderless? I don't really know what I'm doing. Look, I don't like to do this, and I'm not a juego de possession advocate, fucking of Cruyff and Pep. But tell me that under Pep's drilling, Tchouameni would not be a better DM than he is right now.
It's honestly, I mean, even I think a team like Liverpool, I know they've like fashioned Gravenberch into a DM now, but Liverpool, if they had gotten him instead of us after losing that final, they might have had another decent season. I think, I think Arsenal would benefit. He's better than Thomas Partey. Just the physical tools are there, and like the mental engine to like not be a negative on offense at minimum, if not be a plus on offense is there. We've also
be a plus.
We've seen him make like great reads for France and even for us, like some good passes before this whole, I don't even know what to call this, but this whole uncertainty set in about him, and sometime in the last like year.
And to be fair, Sid, right? Like this isn't like players have dips in form. Like development is not linear, right? You're not like, okay, 19 hours is 20, and I keep going up and but sometimes you have a plateau year, or you have a down year. Maybe something's going on in his personal life. I have no idea, right? Like, by the way, kids, if something's going on in your personal life, it's going to affect you at work, right? That's just how life works. And so who knows? But I think the things that we do know, I do think the constant toggling out in and out of position, and the lack of drilled, this is what I need you to do, that coupled with whatever else we don't know, that for sure is causing the regression that we see this year. All that said, I thought he had a great game at DM the last game he played.
Yeah, he did. And the other thing is like just looking at his pass volume. Let me pull that up here. Possession. I guess his touches have been up at Real Madrid. The first season was way up, 22-23, and then it kind of normalized to what he was doing at Monaco. Just more responsibility. He's never had to be this responsible. But again, we see it for France where he's good. And what you brought up about like the off year, that's what I thought the World Cup year was for him. I just thought that was his off year. And that last season would be the one where he figures it out. And it's so weird because like, I don't think he was bad at DM, but we never had our full strength team with him at DM looking great.
Yep.
Like when he looked good, it was when it was when he was out when we looked good with Kroos and Fede in the double pivot. And then when he came back, he had to be shifted to center back for a lot of it. The games when he was DM, I think he was DM in the final, Champions League final.
Yes, that sounds about right.
And that didn't go well. Like we got torn to shreds. So
Yep. Look, and I think all that is tough, right? And you also have to remember the injuries with him too, right? Every time you're out for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, for his with the hamstring, so those have been longer injuries. Guys, like that also sets your development back. It's not even like you're starting from zero again. You're starting from negative, right? Like, and you got to work to get yourself back to neutral. Like, and again, if I have to work to get myself back to neutral, not in my natural position, like these are all things that are just causing more and more challenges. And I think structurally, this is overall, Sid, if you want to go here, we can. One of the issues with the club, right? In that, because Carlo only has, 12, 13 players he trusts, right? This is what causes this problem. Because he won't take someone from Castilla or wherever that, no, their natural position is left back. Nope. I'd rather put Fede there. Okay, but now you're weakening us in our double pivot, right? Like it's your expression everybody knows, you're robbing Peter to pay Paul, right? And this is hurting us ultimately in the framework, in the heartbeat, the engine of our team, right? Which is midfield. Again, I said it a million times and I stand by it. A team that has Bellingham, Camavinga, Fede, and Tchouameni should not be getting run over ruckshot in the midfield like we do. Yet it happens all the time.
Yeah, and that's where so I guess he's been shoehorned into this role player archetype. He's expected to do the work for the team, and the team is now full of guys who don't innately dominate games like in midfield the way Kroos and Modric did. So yeah, they're playing faster. They have no way to win the ball back out of possession, so you get this mess. Yeah, and it's been this way for years. I'm not just surprised because like I'm from the days when like even Zidane didn't know how to coach an out of possession. Like, I mean, everyone is, but those were the craziest days because like the days of Ramos and Varane bailing us out, and then him coming back and learning, and then for us to just go to a coach who like doesn't care about any of that again and to win is the most Real Madrid story though. To win is the weirdest part.
That's the craziest part. And I think, Sid, that's the problem though, right? Like the winning is causing us, not you and I, but the people that the powers that be to not look at structural issues. Like we have no problems. We just won. We won a double. Carlos said today in his press conference availability before the Champions League match against Salzburg. Well, last year we were missing a bunch of guys and we managed okay. And this is the time where we turn everything on. It's like, it's like the stock market, right? Like past performance is not indicative of future results, right? Just because it worked last time doesn't mean it's going to work this time. And I was actually looking at something and I was watching a bunch of matches from last year over again, Sid. Do you know how lucky we were as a club last year? And I feel like most fans don't remember because we have all the glory of the champagne from the Champions League and from Supercopa and La Liga. Like our expected goals against was so high last year. Now we outperformed it. Whatever we did better. I'm like, do you underperform it? Either way, we didn't give up as many as we should have. And I watched a bunch of games. Oh my God. If not for freaking Lunin, Courtois in the final, and a bunch of shots getting hit off the woodwork, holy hell. We got so lucky. Guess what's happening this year? We are performing exactly even with our expected goals allowed. Shock of all shocks, we're not playing as well, right? It's the same, just as bad, right? Those goals are actually going in now. And this is a problem.
Yeah, I think some fans say Casillas was as good. I wasn't there for as long. I really have trouble believing. I also saw the Champions League we won. You can't bullshit me. They weren't saving all these things during the week. Like they were. Okay, we had that 1 second leg against Bayern in 2018. We had that one weird leg against Mandzukic and Allegri when they went up 3-0. Ronaldo scored the penalty. But that was 1 year when we had an off year, and that was the end of a cycle when we weren't even supposed to keep winning.
Right.
Like all of Europe wanted to stop us. We still did it. It's just so different when you're now. All of Europe still wants to stop us, but not for the same reason. They're like, look at these bums like scraping through in La Liga.
That's literally what they're saying. They're like, wait a minute, these guys are getting toasted by Leganés. What's happening with these dudes?
And then they're like, we can't be and they're like, we can't be the idiots who let them like fucking figure it out, and we're not going to be the ones who get embarrassed in April. Like, we're going to do what those little teams couldn't do and show you.
I mean, Sid, Dortmund should have beaten us in the final last year.
I think that's the thing everyone misses. Like, what did they watch in that game? I saw Toni Kroos retiring, and I felt like really sad, and I realized why now. We got torn apart while he was on the field. Now I get what I'm
apart.
While he was on the field, we weren't controlling the game. We lost a guy who told the coach we need to control games. And we decided that we're going to drink more of our own Kool-Aid, go into the season with less defenders. It's so dumb.
And this is what I've been saying about the club for so long. And this is where, you and I talked offline about Madrid liking players. And of course, all sports, from football, you like players that are positionally versatile. Love that. But are we sure that all these guys we have are positionally versatile? I'm not convinced at that, right? Like the idea that Carlos like, oh yeah, Arda can play midfield. I'm like, can he? Or is he more like Brahim in a four? Again, I don't know because he hasn't had enough minutes to show me yet, right? Like,
so that's an interesting one because with Tchouameni, at least fine, he's shoehorned into a role player archetype where fine, maybe you can say he's just never giving enough hunger defensively, and he's not such a big plus offensively. You can blame the club offensively. Maybe you blame him a little for the defense, but on Guler's case, I feel like he needs one role more than Tchouameni because I still think a DM being able to play center back, like if we had a little more coaching or if he had maybe 20% more dog, maybe the narrative wouldn't be like that around him. He's still really valuable. There aren't like too many Tchouamenis. Like Man City don't have like you can't really do that with Rodri to the same degree. So it's not easy. I think that's still something you'd pay a lot of money for. Maybe not as much as we paid for him. Maybe we'd pay 60 million, but again, you don't. Even if another team said, "Hey, I want a Tchouameni hybrid," you don't find one. Guler is a different story. Like he only works if he becomes a 99th percentile playmaker. To be honest, either a tempo controller or a final third creator, and you really have to choose. Like it's not like he's not Luka Modric, where he already had years at Tottenham. He's coming from Turkey. He needs more. I'm worried about him. I'm officially worried. And his metrics are good too. We'll get to that. That's the worst part.
As you should be. As you should be. Like, I'm worried about him too. And look, I get it. Carlos' whole thing is like, my job is not to play young players. Like, I get that. But someone at the club's responsibility is developing talent, right? That is someone's responsibility here. And whoever it is has to get in. See, this is the thing, and I'll zoom out larger about organizations. I talked to you about this with the NBA. The best clubs, the owner, GM, head coach are in lockstep. This is how we do things, and this is how it's going to work here, right? You see that happening right now in OKC. You see it happening in Golden State. You see, even though they're bad, that's because they're an old team. You see it happening with Boston.
In Golden State, that's so funny you said that.
But it's true. Like it's because they're old.
Like, the way it's happening here, though, at Golden State, the way it's happening at Real Madrid.
Oh, it's 100% happening here. It's like Golden State won the title in 2022, and they were like, "Oh, we're fine. Just run it." No, you're not fine. First of all, 2022 was a fluke. Like, honestly, Boston should have beaten you, and they were the better team. Boston should have won that series easily.
Oh, you think it was straight up a fluke? I mean, that's so comparable to us.
100%. Now, the thing about flukes is you have to still do the winning. So they still did the winning, but Boston basically gave it to them, right? Like they handed it away. They had Steph was the only reliable creator, only person. Like, you telling me a team with Tatum, Brown, Holiday,
well, they had one more, and then they punched him. They had one more, and they punched him.
Yeah, Draymond punched Jordan Poole in the face, and we saw how that worked out well. Right?
He was hitting half-court threes. You won't tell me they didn't have one more creator. I saw what I said.
except he wasn't great in that finals, and the organization chose Draymond over him. Well, you see how that's paying dividends now, right? Like, and by paying, I mean not paying dividends, right? This is the situation we're in right now. Luka Modric. I love Luka. We should not be relying on a 39-year-old midfielder as much as we do. This is a problem, right? But we are because, well, Luka's done whatever. To go back to Arda, why, Sid, when he is on the pitch, is he not always our set piece taker every fucking time?
I don't get why he's using I don't get why he's ever in an off-ball role while he's on the pitch, ever. Like, I'm just like, wait, Arda? I'm like, dude, just if it's Arda's on the pitch, you play through Arda. You let Jude make the runs. You let Arda get on the ball. Like, I don't get it.
Arda, to me, he has the ability to be a generational passer. Like he has that vision. He has the technical ability. But guess what happens when you don't play? All your natural gifts don't get honed, and they go away. And then in the few minutes he is on the pitch, you are stressed and you're tight. You see this to a lesser degree with Endrick, right? You're so thirsty that you have to score because I may not see the pitch again for a month. That is not the kind of mindset you need to have when you need to be free, and they are the opposite of that. So that's all part of it. And again, it's these little things, right? These little things matter because then they become big things. But if your only goal is, well, we have to just win the competition we're in, it's like, okay, but you're doing something in the short term, which again might not even work, right? Because I just don't even know if we're good enough in the short term, and you're now hurting yourself long term with development. And this is my issue I have with the club right now and their direction.
The Guler thing, like, one explanation I want to say is like that Brahim is 2-footed, he dribbles, and we're always just desperate for versatile solutions because we don't have a structure. So like in these scenarios when we throw guys on, we just need maximum versatility. We want someone who can ideally like defend from the front because we're probably down. So whoever's faster is like prioritized to some degree. Well, there's a mix to it. Like if we have a bunch of fast guys, maybe we throw on a Luka or a Ceballos to slow it down. But usually the guys we throw on, we need them to play with urgency and speed, which means it's ideal that they can dribble it as well. And that's where Arda has like, they haven't given him the niche of like, okay, we're playing you in the Modric role. You come on for Modric, you play that role. Sometimes I feel like he's in the Brahim role, or like sometimes he's in the Rodrigo role, sometimes he's in the Modric role. That is my big concern for him. I will say though, we keep talking about the concerns. Is there a flip where like you just throw like nature versus nurture? You just sign guys who are certified freaks and throw them into the fire. Do you think it works? Or do you think it's always random? Like, I feel like there's an element of spontaneity that allows like even the greatest talents to like sharpen their blade even more, so to speak.
For sure. Yes, I'm with you 100%. But I think it's for those specific types of players, and not everyone that comes into Real Madrid is like that. Maybe Arda's like that. I don't know. I think one of the challenges for Arda that he has is that while he did get a little physically bigger, he's a little slight, right? And you can still, with a more physical midfielder or defender, can knock him off the ball, right? Like, and he doesn't have Lamine Yamal's blazing speed that it doesn't matter because you can't catch me, right? So this is so like Lamine is that like genetic freak where it's like, okay, he's also slight, but he's so fast it don't matter. You can't catch him anyway, right? So do whatever your physicality. Good luck trying to catch me, right? Arda doesn't quite have that, right? And so this is one of the challenges with him being on the pitch. But all that being said, I think you're right that in an environment where you have that freedom where your blade sharpens. Yeah. So I think that those Copa del Rey's, those early rounds where he got to play full 90s, those are huge for him. I think Endrick, and of course, Endrick scored 2 goals in that game. I'm like, of course he did, because he's just like that. He's another one who kind of thrives in that environment. The problem is that for whatever reason, we can't do that enough in those types of games, right? Like, I'm sorry, but when we're playing the bottom 4 teams in the league, in any, I don't care what competition it is, you mean to tell me we have to have Fede and those guys have, why? Our other guys cannot close out the bottom of the table in games. And if they can't, and I get the whole fact that, yeah, but every time they play Real Madrid, it's their biggest game of the season. Hey, that is the curse of playing for this club. It's not an excuse. That in order to be the greatest team in the world of all sports, this is the deal you have. You sign up for this. Yes, you get everyone's best every time. So what? Suck it up. That's our life. That is our lot. We deal with that. And these guys know that coming in. And I think, again, can Carlo give them enough rope where he's like, okay, I'm not going to yank you when you screw up one thing. But this is where I think a coach, Sid, with, again, I'm not saying Pep, but someone with a little bit more foundation would be more comfortable playing those guys because they know we have something to fall back on. Oh, guys, I don't know. Everybody get back into shape. Here's what we got to do. But it's all random and it's chaos. And sometimes that's good, sometimes bad.
Yeah. And and there's also the other thing where I guess like Pep has developed guys, but even at City, you could argue like he actually hasn't brought like a large volume of like young guys through, which is the difference is our pipeline is superior. And I'm not really refuting you at all. Our pipeline is superior. We should do a better job. Probably many coaches who would lick their lips looking at what we have, they would love these guys as bench options. Pep has to work with Rico Lewis, who's just like not that athletic. Like he's played him a lot. Yeah. He's not that good. If Arda Guler is going to be as good as Rico Lewis, I don't care. I don't want to see Ancelotti develop. That's not what I care about. We only want to see them developed if they're going to be the best. And that's the paradox here. It's a very selfish desire as a club. Or as a fan.
And I think that's the thing, Sid, right? Like, I get it. At Real Madrid, we want the best player in the world at every position. But guys, like sometimes it's just not realistic. Like, and that's okay. You can have the 5th best left back in the world and still be an elite club, right? Everyone is not have to be the best in the world at every position. Look, Mbappe has been better lately. And of course, when he's at full cylinders, this makes this team so good. But Sid, I wonder, what did we pay in sign-on bonus? 100 million, something like that? Whatever.
Yeah.
He's kind of duplicative, right, to what we kind of already have in many ways in some instances. What if we split that $100 million up into, I don't know, a left back, a center back, right? A world-class left back and center back. Would we be a better team now than we think, right? More pieces that fit versus another attacker. Just wondering.
So that is also an interesting question. So I guess like the first thing is like having watched this team for 15 years, that's the answer I'm not as sure about. And I guess like what really, in my opinion, he's only duplicitous because we haven't been coached great. I think Carlo is getting better, and I want to see him achieve what he can if he's really one of the great offensive coaches who can empower these guys with freedom. I don't believe in attacking redundancy. I guess like let's just start there because and this really is such a deep like conviction of mine. Going back to watching Messi, Neymar, and Suarez, how are those? They're all little tweeners. None of them was big. Like Suarez is way more physical for his height, but he's no Lewandowski. He's not even Benzema in terms of heading the ball. All three of our guys were bigger. Why did they work? Go watch them play. They worked because football is not really. Firstly, most teams are going to defend deep. You need multiple like. You just need everyone to be a weapon against deep blocks. And so that's where I would say you actually do need almost everyone to be the best in the world if you want to make your life very easy against these teams without tactics, which is what we've done for 10 years. You don't want to think and you want to make life easy and you want to just let your guys figure it out. You do need the best in every position. The second or third will be a giant drop-off and you'll get what we got after Ronaldo, before Vinicius, where we're a good team. Yeah. And even with Zidane doing it better tactically, we can't be the best that easily, even with Zidane's better tactics. And I think that illustrates why. So I think you could argue as a left winger, he's redundant. I just feel like, I was there, dude. Messi didn't want to play right wing. And like the first 6 months, it looked like they wasted the money on Suarez. People like are so revisionist about this. Luis Enrique benched Messi and Neymar January, like 2 weeks before this time. Against Real Sociedad, Copa del Rey game, they lost. Oh, no, they didn't lose. But he benched them in some La Liga or Copa game. Big fallout. And that was in a 2-3 week period, either before or in the game after. There was a moment when Messi saw Suarez go up to center forward. And instead of like saying, I want to go back there, he's like, hey, Louis, like, stay there. It's famous. I don't know if you remember this. It's very famous. He's like, stay there, and I'm going to play right wing. Their whole season changed. I really think we've seen enough glimpses. Like, he's too fast. He's too devastating. And
he's incredible.
I don't rate him as an on-ball creator to think that he can only put his best output on the left wing. That is my thing. And I think Vinicius has shown so much as like an off-ball player that it is so insulting to think that the reason we're not dominating the season is because we signed a striker instead of a left and center back. I think that's insulting to the group of players we have. It's insulting to the cracks that Galacticos have all that papered over.
And that's the thing, right? It's like it's what I'm always looking at is what cracks do we have, right? And what are we masking over? And so for me, it would be fine if we're scoring 4 or 5 goals a game. If we're giving up 2 or 3, fine. If we're winning 5-3, fine. I don't care. But the cohesion, and part of it's because of injuries and whatever. And then in the last game Vinicius played, so not the last like La Liga game because he was suspended, but Copa del Rey. On that first Mbappe goal, I'm screaming, Vinny, why are you cutting in front of him? Oh my God, like you guys go to the same spot. Like there's so much of those moments where their natural instinct is to go to the same place where each other are. Even in the last La Liga game, right? Where I think it was Brahim or Vasquez set a pass up, and the pass was clearly looked like to Jude, but Mbappe comes, I'm like, you just stole the ball. Like it was sitting right here for Jude to score that goal, right? There's a little bit of that clunkiness that, again, if you're not optimized fully, which we're not yet, and scoring 5-6 a game, then who cares if those things happen? The point is we are not at that stage. So when every little goal matters, it's like, shit, like that's a blown opportunity. That's a wasted opportunity, right? Where I feel like the structure piece is missing, right? If we had a little bit more structure, right, we'd overcome this problem, right? So it's really a chicken and egg thing like I'm talking about again. Fully optimized version can succeed with no structure. The problem is it's not fully optimized. So that's why we're having these struggles.
That makes complete sense. And essentially the case of signing other players makes sense too. Like we needed, when we lost Nacho, got an ACL, post-ACL Militao back, we should have went for someone else. And right now, like it's also exacerbated by the fact that like if we still had Carvajal, maybe our season looks a little different. But with Vasquez in there, it's like, yes. And so, but it also means like it's hard to go back and like evaluate whether we needed another defender accurately. Like we obviously had something happen that made us need another defender a lot more. If he just was there, like seasons are won on the margins, man. And like, yeah,
but I think to your point, Sid, that it's fair. It's fair to go into every season assuming there will be one or more season-ending injuries. That's a fair thing to assume.
It is.
And so the idea that you had no backup behind Carvajal, no one on this in the board said, wait a minute, if we lost Carvalho for the season, we have to play Lucas Vazquez every single game at right back. Nobody thought that was a bad idea. Like anybody could have seen that coming, right? And now going back to the development thing we talked about, some corner fans talking about, oh, move Raul Sensi to right back. I'm like, guys, this is what I'm talking about. This is a player who is young, who has shown he has the capabilities of playing center back. You now want to screw with his development by moving him to a different position in right back now. Again, I don't know if Raul Asensio is the greatest center back of all time prospect. Odds are probably not. What I do know is that monkeying around with his moving his positions at this early stage in his career, I think he has 400 minutes maybe at this level, not even that many. And you want to now push him to right back? Guys, that's not helpful. Like, again, if he was the greatest center back prospect of all time, fine. But I don't know that he's that, right? And odds are he probably isn't, because if he was, he'd already be in the first team, right? And so this is the challenge when you have people who are skilled at this, right? And yes, I know it's all the back line, but guys, center back and right back or left back they require different things, right? They just do. And so
yeah. The only thing I'd say there is if it's a question of saving our season, you're choosing between Fede at right back and Tchouameni and Asensio. He does sound the most promising of the three when you consider what you lose from midfield.
He does.
So, yes. And he's also a weird case where, I don't know, you just don't know he exists. He comes out and, to be honest, it's weird because I'm not he might have a bad game at right back. I don't know if it would affect his confidence just having watched him.
No, he seems to be a very confident player, which I love. And he also seems to be, look, I'm not someone who believes in all the silly shit that players do, like how Vinicius always gets taunted and poked at by thugs like Maffeo. I don't believe in that kind of play. I'm like, guys, play actual football. Don't do this stupid shit. However, if La Liga is going to allow players like that to do that, then we need one of those also then, right? So that they know, don't fuck with our guy because now I'm going to fuck with you, right? And Asensio seems to be that kind of guy who doesn't take any guff or shit from the other team. And he's got a kind of physical presence to him. He's kind of a big dude. So I like that he at least gives that, because look, physiological intimidation is a thing, right? I don't know how else to explain to people in sports. It just is. And if you have a guy who can literally strike fear in the other team, okay, cool. I'll roll with that.
Intimidation is a thing. It's a lot of fun. One of my favorite things about the sport. I was never that skilled. That was my role growing up.
Oh, so you were an intimidator?
Well, at the end of the day, I was the DM. Our guys go dribble. They have guys who tackle them. Their guys dribble. I go tackle them. So
yeah.
I'm the warrior. What attracted me to the sport was not dribbling. It was the fact that tackling. Midfield felt like I'm in Rome or I don't know, I'm in the trenches in the World Wars. That's what it felt like.
So I love that we have Asensio. And yes, of the three, because of what we would lose not having Fede and Tchouameni in midfield, yes, I would be more comfortable. But the only point I'm making is that for his overall development, I don't want this to be a thing where the team, again, the board says, oh, it doesn't matter. We don't need to sign a right back because if we have a problem, just move Asensio there. No. That should be an emergency situation, not a long-term season solution.
Yes. And that's where the Kool-Aid thing comes in. They did this thing where they saved money to get Mbappe, and then 2 Champions Leagues landed on their lap before they got him because their bet on Vinny went off. And yeah, it's a lot of Kool-Aid. So we haven't talked about Kaminga. I don't think we need to touch on Endrick too much in that it's like that, it's like talking about Guler last season. You just know we're gonna have to get to that later. And
look, and to be fair, he is young and he needs time, and you're not gonna start him above Mbappe. I mean, it's just he has too many the world's best players above him. So I get it. And he's being patient. And I will say I was very happy for him that when he came on, he scored those 2 goals. I know it made him feel good, and so that's good. He just needs to keep working, and he'll get his opportunity
for sure. And one reason I'll say the reason the club is doing this 2 timeline thing, so to speak.
Warriors.
If any of you are NBA fans and know about all that, you'll find this segment funny. But we really have kind of pulled off what they tried doing, but better. And we've reached a new era with the flux. We lost our Kroos and got our Mbappe. It's like if their staff made way for LiAngelo Ball, but they never drafted him.
And my God, yeah.
Yeah,
or Şengün, they could have a bunch of guys.
Yeah. So in that case, so our 2 timeline thing worked, and not only that, it's just so hard to explain how we stopped spending money for a few years and just survived, and then went on to win a Champions League without really pulling the purse out. That summer, we were trying to get Mbappe before we won the Champions League in 21-22. We didn't get him. That summer, we end up selling so many guys. And I think it's the quantity of money we sold all those guys for that has us drinking our Kool-Aid that, hey, anyone who comes here, we can sell. Because Kovacic went for 50 million. And we botched his development and he went for 50 million. How did that happen? Because he's so skilled. And I think a lot of our guys are so supremely skilled. It takes a lot to decline their stock, even if they're not on the pitch. And that's a great example is like Danny Ceballos.
What a great game he had last. Oh, so good.
Yeah, and like he's just coming and going. Arsenal had him at one point. Like this is a guy who in 2018 you would talk about him like Guler. Like the next great playmaker. And I guess like in terms of long-term decline, that's what you risk. You get Ceballos, who's 8 years into his career. You don't really sell him for much. He sticks around. I'd say it's the whole trajectory has come at the expense of him as a player. Would you say?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, because as you mentioned, 18, like you were like he's part of that young trio that they were like, oh my God, he's gonna be the next like Spanish national team star, yada yada, the whole nine, and it didn't quite pan out. And this all ties back to what we started the show talking about, Sid, which is players need playing time like they need oxygen to breathe. When you don't like it, this stunts your development. And then when you're kind of in and out, we're gonna sell you over here, then and now again, I don't know if Ceballos would have ever become the thing. We don't have the proof to see it, but we didn't get the opportunity to, right? And I think, and this is where someone like him, and in the last couple summers, he's like, I want to get out of here and leave because he just wants to play, right? But he's happy now because guess what he's doing? He's playing and he's showing you, look what happens when I play. I can actually help us. He is the only midfielder we have that has, except for Jude, that's got like that pausa in his game, right? That like when the ball comes to his feet, he isn't freaking out going, I gotta get rid of it. Like, he can wait. He can wait that extra half a beat. And most fans see this, but the fans that don't, guys, like that ability to just wait that extra half a heartbeat, or if you're really good like Kroos and can wait that full heartbeat, that is so big. I think there's one of those aggregation sites, Sid, maybe it's like TC, the Total Cristiano account on Twitter, did like a whole compilation of Kroos evading the press. And guys, that's all it is. It's the pause. It's just he waits, lets the defender commit. Okay, now I know what direction I'm going. You don't do that at 17 years old. Like you got to work to that. It takes all the minutes and all the permutations of seeing and knowing where everybody is. And that's the other thing too about the randomness, Sid, that this is the side that hurts. Because I'm not sure where someone's going to be, if I'm a young player playing with everybody, that hurts my development in terms of I know my outlet is always going to be here, right? Because how many times you see a player like, oh, I'm in trouble. I'm gonna cross switch. There's nobody there because you expect someone to be there, except he's not because he decided to occupy a different space or what have you. And this is where I think again, you need a little bit of everything, right? I'm not saying full on Pep, right? But the idea of do whatever the fuck you want, like no, not that either, right? Like we need a hybrid, the perfect balance of both, and that's hard. I get it.
Well, in that sense, like the biggest question here that we kind of drive to is like, can you coach pausa? And I want to bring some basketball into this because like there's what you said about knowing the guy is going to be there. It's only valuable if the other team also doesn't already know where that guy is going to be in advance, which is the issue that Arsenal, Man City run into where they do the same shit every week.
Yes.
Everyone knows. So the level of intricacy you have to reach in your combination to break through, like the threshold goes up. Fine, those teams plan exclusively around playing in that way. Is the thing is like what Kroos and Modric have is they can do it even when the coach isn't telling people where to stand. There are guys who can do this who have played under Pep, and Pep wouldn't have to tell them what to do, like Xavi. To be honest, like, and I think a good example that you can coach pausa is Rodri. Rodri, I'll just pull up his numbers, but he was not anywhere near this pass volume when he joined Man City. He was a very good playmaker, but his numbers are staggering because he went from like good to like higher volume than any of Kroos' seasons.
I mean, he freaking won the Ballon d'Or. Now he probably shouldn't have, but an elite, the best DM in the world, right? Like, I mean, it just is.
Okay, so 93%, 91 to 93% completion. Even at Atleti, Monaco, he was at 91, but only on 65 attempts. And then he went up to 95 attempts at Man City. Okay, so it looks like actually he didn't get coached up. He was the same almost every year. Then in 23-24, with Gundogan gone, he just like reached a different level where they ran their whole midfield through him. But that is development to me, because that level of usage is significantly higher than what we saw before. And the other thing for me is like, if you swap, I don't think Rodri is as good as Toni Kroos, like as a playmaker. Like,
no.
Okay, yeah, it's not just me, right? And it's not just Real Madrid fans. I think that's what, like, a lot of you probably listen to this and saying, oh, you're just a biased Real Madrid fan. No, like, Kroos averaged double the line-breaking passes per 90 in the Champions League last year. He's just a more forward-thinking. He's ridiculous. Yes. He can just go forward without, like,
and he could also, he doesn't have the shackles of, like, he can take risks, right? Whereas Rodri, because of Pep's system, that's not, like, the risk-taking is not, like, he won't do it, you know, like.
Well, Kroos, I feel like he rarely took risks too, but I get what you mean. It is a different mandate.
Right.
It is a different mandate. Well, so within that, that's what I mean. Is it possible? How much can you meaningfully improve a player's ability to increase their pausa without giving them a better system? And I ask about a basketball analogy because, like, I don't see it happening all the time in soccer. First of all, like, the way I see it happen is always like, great coach takes an already great player, makes them even better in a system, but it's not great coach takes player, makes them better at scanning the pitch. I have very rarely seen that. But I've seen point guards develop in basketball. And is the difference that in basketball, you're running always with set plays? Like, even if it's a random possession, you start from some standpoint of how you're spacing the floor. In soccer, everything is spontaneous. Is that the difference?
That's a huge difference, right? In that you're going to probably start some pick and roll, right? Get a big man to come and set a screen. Like there's some sort of, unless you're on a fast break, right? But even on the fast break, right? Like now teams split out to three, right? But the big man will run towards the rim, right? There is sort of like tenets that most teams have. And in soccer, right? We just don't, because of the random nature of the game, you don't have that as much, right? So that is true. But that's coaching though, Sid, right? Like, and I think football coaches can do that. You can develop players, right? Like my podcast partner, Chris Thorpe, as everybody knows, that's his entire business. Like, he literally makes your current NBA stars better. It's not their head coach who's doing that work with them. It's David, right? Like and coaches like him who in the offseason, like, they're working on, all right, here's what you do. Now, David works in concert with the team and the coach. Like, all right, this is what the plays are going to be. This is what you have. Okay, here's what I think we can do. To your point you mentioned earlier, does it matter about someone being already good? Yes, that already helps. If they're already elite, yes, that makes you better, but you can still coach someone who is, first of all, if you're in the NBA, you're already an elite basketball player. If you're already playing world football, you're already a world-class footballer. So you have a level of talent. The question is, how much can I get out of you, right? And that's the hard part of coaching, right? That takes meticulous hours and work. And when do they do it? I don't even know, with the compact schedule as it is, right? And that's the relationship between player and coach and all the soft stuff that, again, fans don't see. Fans turn on the match and they just scream and yell because somebody fucked something up, as opposed to, okay, but what was that person doing all week, right, to get ready for this moment? Probably not what they needed to, right? Which is why what happened, right? And so this is the challenge that you have in sports with these crowded calendars and stuff we talked about before, Sid, which is, what did Carlos say? My job is to win matches, not to develop players, right? Like, when when you know I'm going to get fired if we lose, you ain't thinking about, how am I going to get this guy's pausa better? No, who the hell are my 11 best guys to get on the pitch so we can win this fucking match? Same thing happens in the NBA, right? Like, I got to win.
Yeah, and also Real Madrid is just like, I guess when you add the totality of the last two, it's just more Champions Leagues in a short span than any other team. So you have to weight the success higher. Maybe you don't want to rip everything up. Are there any examples of like teams that have attempted this, maybe done it better? Or like, I guess like, and that ties into what you were saying about Carlo and Florentino talking about like leaving together in 5 years, which is silly. But like, I don't want to go out sad, but like, we are ultimately we view ourselves as a dynasty that doesn't want to shake it up aggressively stage as a club. So, I mean, the Warriors are a good example. They messed up. I think that example is not a fair one here because it started with a player punching another one. I feel like that was the whole problem, right? But even then, I guess you could argue before that, Jordan Poole was like waving his money around at Draymond, pissing him off too. Was that like something? Was that just like an earlier problem?
That matters. Jordan Poole's a talker, and look, I mean, y'all know Draymond's from Saginaw. Like he don't take guff from nobody. Like, and look, like Jordan will had to know, like, I want to run my mouth. Like, listen, you don't have to get ready if you stay ready. You had to know once I started talking my mess. And here's the thing about that video, Sid. It wasn't like, oh, he was right next to him, was a quick punch. Draymond walked all the way. Listen, I am not a fighter, but I know if I said something slick or out of pocket and the person is now walking towards me, hands are up because he probably coming to fight, right? Like, I mean, you just, and knowing who that person is, and Draymond, already a volatile person as is, you got to already know and have your hands up and be ready. There's no excuse. Now, if he knocks you out anyway because he's a better fighter, that's one thing. But to be like, oh, it came out of no. He was no. You had to know that. But to talk about teams that who can do it differently, it's something we actually did an article on True about what Oklahoma City did. So remember they went to the playoffs with Paul George and Russell Westbrook, right? And they were very good. Most teams
they weren't very good, but they made it.
They were good enough, right? And Paul George had an outstanding season that year.
Yeah.
Most teams in that scenario, Sid, would not trade Paul George. They just wouldn't. They'd be like, no, we're going to run it back. We'll be tweaking the edges, whatever. But Oklahoma City said, you know what? Paul George's value is at its highest point right now. And Oklahoma City and on the Clippers, Kawhi said he's not going there unless he gets Paul George. We can get a ransom back. So they got back, of course, a future MVP because he will win it this year in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. But it's not just that. It's also all the draft capital, which turned into Jalen Williams, all these other awesome guys in that team. So Oklahoma City is the one, right, where it's like you sell a little early, right? And we had this debate on True about like a team like Orlando. If you don't think you're going to win the title with Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner, you move Paolo now at 21. I know it sounds blasphemous and crazy because he hasn't gotten that big contract yet, right? The huge rookie max extension. You get back a haul. One of them could be your next young MVP you can win a title with, and a shit ton of picks, which gives you many bites of the apple. Now, unfortunately, football doesn't work that way, right? You don't get draft picks and all that. But it's the same kind of idea where it's, okay, I think we've hit our limit and run our course with this. How can we move on from these, right? Sell high. With all that money, we now buy our future spine of the future is going to take us to 4 Champions Leagues in 6 seasons or whatever the number may be. Back-to-back La Liga titles, right? But that's hard. Either way, that's hard work, right? That's the vision, the foresight. We trust in our development. It's a lot of planning. And most don't want to do that. Stick to the known thing. No, these are known things. I know this is a known superstar because you're not going to get killed by that, right? No one's going to kill you for signing Kylian Mbappe because he's Kylian Mbappe. Fine, right? Like, but they will kill you for, ooh, don't do that. Instead, go with the young guys and see what happens. Or you'll get killed for that. That will, if it doesn't work. But if it does work, the future of your team is set. That's where, in that way.
And we did. Well, that's where we did kind of do that, and we won.
We did when we got Jude, and we did with Vinny and Rodrigo, and
we won the Champions League, and that's why we're like, I guess now he thinks he's the Godfather, like Florentino.
and that to me, Florentino winning another presidency term for another 4 years unopposed, and Carlos saying, "Oh, I'd love to go out together." It's like, guys, because you two are just listen. Carlo works for Florentino because Carlo will not criticize Florentino in public. And we talk about that job preservation, right? That he knows how to keep his job. I don't criticize him. We know what Jose Mourinho would do, right? He'd be screaming that he has no, and he'd get fired because Florentino didn't want to get criticized. Right?
He called Lucas Vazquez a cat or something.
Right? And again, I don't advocate calling out Real Madrid like a guy who's come up through the club ranks, but he'd have a legitimate point. It's like, yo, man, I need help. What did Carlos say at today's presser? Oh, we have a complete squad. I'm like, oh, no. But what did you expect him to say? Of course he's going to say we have a complete squad because that's what he has to say that Florentino feels comfortable. And ultimately, that's Florentino. It's like, it's his own echo chamber. Self-fulfilling prophecy. I told you we're fine. Everything's good. Except that, no, but we're not. We're missing certain things. By the way, really quick, I was kind of bummed we missed out on Vitor Ruiz from Palmeiras. That Man City got him. I know we were rumored to go after him. I'm like, guys, we didn't get Euro last summer. We need a center back. Are you now convinced that Asensio, Martinez, and Jacobo Ramon, like that's our future? And I'm okay with that. But then I want them integrated into the first team then. I want to know.
Yeah. Asensio should be integrated right now. There should be no wait. Why would you wait?
He should never. He should be. That's it. He is on the first team. That should be over. That should not even be a thing. And this idea that our reinforcements are Alaba, guys. We all remembered what Militao looked like coming back off an ACL. Not good. So you trust Alaba in a do or die Champions League match right now, coming off not playing for 13 months? I don't. And it's not a knock on him. It's just that you need time to get yourself together.
Yeah, and that's where like the only excuse to not use Asensio is if they see something where he doesn't turn out generational. Listen, I'm not some top scout, but I think if there's something I know when I see it, it's like greatness. I think I don't always recognize like close to greatness. Maybe I don't pinpoint where it is, but greatness, once it's in vicinity, I know like it's not gonna be drifting away. Yeah. But yeah, like that whole thing. I've been watching this team. It only works when they're the best in the world. All right, this guy has it. Like I can tell you, he won't be second or third best in the world. Like
he's gonna be number one.
The other thing is they're going for William Saliba. That's a possibility. There's one area where this club is usually good, and where I always defer to, like, you know, as an analyst, you have to on some level like take your authority seriously, have an engaging conversation. You can't just defer to what the club says. But if there's an area I always defer, I do think their player evaluations are right on in terms of who's actually going to be great. If they're not going to have something to be great, and Real Madrid says so, they're probably right. There's probably very few worlds where they're wrong. If they're going to be like, if they see an athletic deficit, if they think, okay, he's missing something in the personality, they probably know what they're talking about. They've seen these dudes come in and out of the club for years. So yeah, I would like to know why they wouldn't. Saliba is a possibility, and I say that because passing up on Davies and getting Trent, correct decision. No matter how you want to look at it, you can say Trent's the worst right back defensively. We need to replace Mendy, but one of these guys is better than the other, and I think we made the right choice there. So I think in general they do a good job like reserving slots for guys who will only assuredly be number one. Just sometimes maybe they don't fill in all the positions. Maybe they wait sometimes for that guy. And we've been waiting more and more since Ronaldo left 6 years now.
Yeah. No, I think you're right on that. Right. And I think, look, okay, if that's the goal and we have to have the best player in the world, that position, then we have to accept that in those interim years while we're still looking, we're going to have some issues, particularly if we don't have a tactical base or foundation to fall back on. We're going to have what we see this year, right? Which is we're getting run all over by everybody, right? Like literally everybody runs through our midfield like it's a joke.
The last time a season went like this with so much debt, Carlo actually got fired and we signed all the debt that summer. We signed the wrong coach. It's possible they make all the right choices this time. Maybe they're like, hey, Carlo, like, we'll give you a new Joselu. We'll bring Miguel Gutierrez back. You get him, Fran Mendy. I don't know what they want to do. You get 3. Like, we won't sign a Davies, but we'll give you 3 now. So, like, you can do something with them. We'll get you Trent. We'll keep Asensio. Maybe they do something like that. And I think overall, I do have confidence they will sign players this summer. And I guess the last concern we really missed fully in this episode is like the same thing that keeps hurting us is the lack of defensive structure. And someone maybe it's hurting now is Kaminga, where he can dominate any midfield, but inconsistent roles, inconsistent build-up structures, inconsistent decisions on how he should be playing, what the system is in each game. Some games he's a shuttling left mid who kind of has to cover the flank. Some games he's actually between the lines. Some games he's like very deep in the pivot. It's a lot of variety. The thing of like, I sympathize with in possession. Maybe he's not perfect because a guy who's such a great dribbler sometimes takes time to learn pausa. A great example is Frankie de Jong. Never reached the level of Modric or Kroos. Very skilled, should have, never did. Because he could always just rip past his man instead of like slowing down. That is something I don't know how you even teach it when you're just fast. Like, and it's hard to teach an athlete to slow down when they're just used to winning games with their bodies.
Well, it's like a basketball analogy is Russell Westbrook, right? He's always been the best athlete on the court and was like, shooting doesn't matter. It's like, but it does matter, my guy, right? Like now it does, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like it's like developing that other part of your game matters now, right? Because you can't always just dominate everybody physically. And I think, and when you're playing against better sides who can match you athletically, right? Well, we need that pausa, right? Like we need a little bit of that tactical structure to help us, be better and more varied in our buildup, right? And so I think again, these are the challenges because Camavinga is outstanding, right? Like his Cobra tackles, like he is unbelievable. And I think, yes, generational. Like, what would you say? Do you think he's best as a DM in the pivot, in a double pivot, or as a left center midfielder?
For me, he is prime N'Golo Kante. He could do it all. And like, it's just a question of health. And I think a lot of it is a good defensive structure that I think, okay, I guess I'll put it this way. I think he's a great offensive player. I don't think he needs to be a huge plus. I think just his dribbling and press resistance makes it so offensively, it doesn't matter where he plays. I think defensively, he also can thrive anywhere. But I think a system where he's not just covering defensive gaps, but allowed to play coordinated, where they're like winning the ball back, he can go. He has, like, we've had moments this season when we're like having him in the recovery pivot role, and him and Fede can just do these 10-yard leaps where they catch guys who don't know they're marking them. And so the guy might look open when the defender is playing the pass out to the outlet, and then he's not.
Yep.
I think Kante was at his best for me when he was like both a 6 and an 8 defensively. I think you want a system that like optimizes for his dual winning in those two areas.
Yes.
And so not a lone pivot, not a lone CM. I think like a double pivot.
Yeah.
Yep. Would be ideal, or even a midfield 3. Just he should be the dual machine. Like, he should have a zone of the pitch where like you own this, you own anyone who walks in here. Zone defense with him. But that's what's so great about him. You can like shift coverage to man on a whim because of how fast he can cover. But I think as long as you play with like Arlo, I think like a coach like Zidane would love him because ball security, defense, like, oh, he would play heavy minutes because this guy Zidane would just have him keep the ball, and pretty much anytime we lose it, he would have him hunt it down for us. That is what we need from him. And like, yeah, we're just at a point where we can't sign a generation of great defenders and then have the same coach with the same weaknesses before, for sure.
Yeah, no, I think you're dead on there. And I think it ties back to what you said, is that if we just had a little bit of structure defensively and how to win the ball back out of possession, I think you would see, particularly from Camavinga and Tchouameni, I think you'd see really, really better play than you see right now. And now you can talk about that dominating midfield, right? Where it's like, all right, good luck getting past these guys. Like, it's not going to happen, right? We just don't have that. And again, they're young enough. They're 23 and 24. So, this is why I'm scared about Carlo being like, oh, Flo and I are going to go out together. I'm like, dear God, that means they're going to be 27, 28. Like, does Florentino be like, all right, we got to get somebody in here, a tactician who can just, again, not shackle them, but just give them that so that we are taking advantage of what they do best. Who that is that Xabi Alonso? I don't know. Like that's the question.
Yeah, totally. And they were looking at Pochettino a couple years ago. I was very excited by the prospect. I mean, not anymore after just seeing what's happened to Pochettino. I feel bad. I feel like he also just picked all the jobs where like they don't care about you. They just want your name. They want your name, and they want to pray that your brand works, and it's Pochettino's PSG or Pochettino's Chelsea. But and I guess he also did not do a good job at Chelsea, is my understanding. So not excited anymore, but like the same Pochettino coach Tottenham coaching this team would have been crazy. And I would argue, like, we don't need a Pochettino in that it doesn't have to be a coach whose style is based out of possession. I think Real Madrid is a great club where maybe we shouldn't focus on reacting fully, but just be
proactive for sure.
Yeah, be proactive. You can be proactive without being so ultra, like, you don't have to be ultra reactive defensively where everything is just based on the opposition. You can impose yourself more for sure.
And especially like right when we know we have. When we start Rodrigo, Vinny, and Mbappe, like we're basically on defense. Like two of those three are not defending, right? Like, I mean, Rodrigo does have, but like those two just aren't. And the thing that's a little frustrating is that Vinny used to defend, right? Like, and so we can afford one guy not defending, but two, like that hurts. And you see it every time. Like we just get crushed. It's like walking around. I'm like, look, guys are like. A little kid can, like a little toddler learning to walk, and just dribble the ball by themselves through the midfield because no one's tracking, and that's a problem for us. It
is. And yeah, it is a problem. I'm sure we'll get a return to the defensive age. For what it's worth, I doubt Carlos sticks around for 5 years. He won't. I don't think he can. Like, I don't know, unless they got some crazy black magic going. I don't know what. even
Listen,
that, like black magic usually like still needs some real world logic to work in conjunction with. I feel like
look, and I'm not someone who advocates for this, but the way that Carlo would not come back is if this is a trophyless season, right? If we win, I mean, technically it's not because we won freaking Intercontinental Cup and whatever that Super Cup was, but a real trophy, right? But here's the thing, this team, because of the individual brilliance, might luck their way into a fucking like winning the league, and then it's like, oh, Carlo's got to stay back to, because there's the thing, he's never won back-to-back titles, and it's like, oh, great, can't sack him now. Like,
I think this would be the worst if this continues this way. This would be the worst league title victory in Real Madrid history, and I think maybe the first time, because all the leagues we've won, we've actually had good seasons because of Messi. Like, he made it so that we only won when we were actually good for so long, up till like 2 of the last 3 years when we were like so half-assing it half the year. It didn't matter because the league sucked. And so going forward, this might be the first time we win the league and we're actually like, that was garbage, even though we won. It might be an interesting like reversal of previous years when we were garbage. We won the Champions League. You're not gonna like have a conversation that's
right
in any tone negative after that. But
never. But
yeah, we are kind of dependent on not winning the Champions League to improve our processes as a club this year. So it might be in our favor to not win it for a change.
and I know as fans, that hurts us to say that, like, but like, if we want the processes to improve, I think you need. Look, it's like people talk about, like, with addictions, right? And hitting rock bottom, right? Like, now this club is too good to ever hit rock bottom, so that won't happen. But rock bottom for us would be, right? For some, we're like in 20th place right now in the group standing in Champions League. Let's say we get to the playoff round we have to play, but we lose then, right? That would be, oh my God, catastrophic. And then we drop down to third in the league or whatever, right? That would be like, oh, okay. Right, like that's a little cause you to be like, all right, we messed up some stuff. We gotta look at this stuff seriously now.
Yeah, that's where our players are so good. It's probably not going to happen. Like, the way we're 7 points ahead of Barcelona, we're a couple ahead of Atletico now. It's like it's looking like this league is going to land on our lap one way or the other. So it is an interesting time. I think we're gonna wrap it up right about here. Thank you everyone for joining. It was a fun episode. Jarod, thank you for coming on. It was a pleasure as always.
Always, Sid. Love coming on with you.
Well, everyone, let's see how the season goes. See you all next time.